Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Alex, my friend, how are you handling the quarantine so far?
Well, it's different. You're used to at least going out of the house a little bit. But hey, you got to do what you got to do to keep safe. Luckily today the sun is out, so at least that kind of brightens your mood a little bit, because the last few days of rain and just gloomy weather have really kind of added to the sadness of it all. But hopefully this passes by as soon as possible, because it's like we've said before, this is nothing like we've faced before in our lives, and it's all very new to us, so we just got to get through it.
I'm shocked you didn't ask me what it was like the Spanish flu in 1918.
Oh, I'm not that mean. I could have, but I'm not that mean.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. We are in strange times now, and we will be talking about said strange times. And those strange times don't just include the coronavirus that is going around. It's also what the Bears are doing in free agency. I'm just going to throw that out there. But before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the Stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Obviously, the season is not going on because there is no sports going on right now. But when they do come back, and they will come back stronger than ever, make sure you head on over to icehawks.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. So, how are you spending your time without any sports?
Well, I'm playing some video games. I'm watching some movies. I might do some artwork maybe later this weekend. But I'm watching a lot of throwback games. Last night, Friday night, I was watching Game 4 of the 2015 NLDS against the Cardinals. Then right after that, I watched the pennant clincher in 2016. And right now, as we speak, in the background on the television, NBC Chicago, God bless them, they are showing Game 5 of the Nashville Blackhawks series from 2010. Also can't fail to mention watching some of the 96 Bulls playoff run that they're showing on NBC Sports Chicago, which I was only 2 years old for. So, it's nice to kind of watch those games in its entirety. So I'm trying to make the best of it.
I've been watching sport alternatives. I've been just watching whatever kind of competition I can. So I, at the behest of Dan McNeil, I started watching professional, I guess you would say professional, marble racing.
What? That's a thing?
It's a thing. It's a thing. It's a guy, and he builds the audience, the crowd, out of other marbles, and he has the grandstands. And he gives them team names. And then I also watched a 5-minute video of a crab fighting a wind-up robot toy.
Well, I mean, it is competitive, so it is something.
It was competitive. The crab didn't know. The crab really was fighting for his life against the wind-up toy.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the lack of sports that we have right now. Because it's rough. And I get it. I'm doing my part, and I'm not mad about it. It's just all my life I've had, this time of year I have hockey and basketball, and then, once those sports kind of go through their playoff process, then baseball is in full swing. I mean, we're in the heat of things, and you get baseball, and then football starts coming back, and the whole cycle starts again. And that's my adult, I guess not even adult life. That's been my whole life, following that cycle. And then as I'm, a well-seasoned adult, it all changes. I'm like, I'm not used to this. This is weird.
This was going to be our last weekend without Major League Baseball regular season. Unfortunately, that's not the case now, but that is what it was going to be. And I'm really feeling it now. The first few days, I kind of thought, all right, I'll just find other ways to distract me, maybe watch a few highlights here or there, and maybe just get my mind off it. But the more time goes on and the more you realize what should be going on, like Selection Sunday, for example, when it wasn't Selection Sunday, that felt weird. Knowing that baseball is not going to start very soon, that feels weird. Not watching a live hockey or basketball game in over a week in March, that's weird.
It's absolutely weird. But I'm trying to, like you, I'm trying to fill the void. One thing is, did you happen to watch the short documentary on NBC Sports Chicago the other day, I'm Back?
I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah, that was a nice, I don't know, some reminder, because, it was I remember when that all happened live, and you have to think about it is when you were at that time, there was no Twitter, there was no, it was a lot different getting news, so there was just a lot of buzz about it. And I remember, what's happening, what's going on, and it was crazy time. So it was really neat to relive that, and kind of refresh it in my mind. That was
what
was
is
a
it
cool
they
time.
said in the documentary? The fax machines was our social media. There was something like that.
Yeah, I mean, to think about stuff like that is hilarious. How far we've progressed in not that much time.
Just in the past 10 years, I mean, when you really think about it, it's amazing how much we've progressed. Just think about if this was in the age of Twitter when Michael Jordan came back in 95. Imagine just how many rumors would be being posted. Imagine reporters posting pictures of like Michael Jordan in his car just with their phones. I mean, look, back then they were stuffing up old microphones and cameras in his face, where now, all these reporters would just be using their cell phones. They'd just be taking it out and snapping pictures, snapping video. It would be all over the place. And Twitter, if this happened during the age of Twitter, Twitter would break. It would just flat break.
It really would. So I mean, it's funny. It's funny to think about, how much stuff was able to keep under the radar just because there wasn't the same sense of social media where, like the story of him going to practice with the Golden State Warriors. Somebody would have tweeted that and then it would have gotten out. But because, like, who do you tell? Like, news doesn't get out that fast anymore.
No, and I mean, when you think about it, if you overheard that, before social media and you had no evidence, no one would probably believe you, right?
Well, yeah, and you weren't going to take a photo with your cell phone because, well...
Those big bricks didn't have cameras on them.
Yeah, they didn't, and people didn't walk around with their cameras on, with them all the time. So it was just like, it's just a different time. Like things, it was just hearsay. So if somebody like came up to him like, Michael Jordan is practicing with the Golden State Warriors, like nobody's believing that But now it's like, it's Twitter. So if it happened on Twitter, it happened.
I mean, people this day and age, and it might not always be a good thing, some schmuck could start a Twitter account. Just start one and tweet a rumor, and there would be people buying into it or wondering if it's true. At least wondering if it's true. Because, I mean, let's face it, burner accounts are a real thing, and some people with actual credentials will do that. I mean, you remember, what was it, the one account called WetButt39 or something like that, was the first to report the Jose Quintana trade between the Cubs and the White Sox. I mean, today you'd at least get questions about it, where back then you would have heard that from some person that nobody else was verifying. They'd say, no, it's a load of rubbish. You're just making it up.
Or Kevin Durant, all of his burner accounts, where he fights his battles on Twitter with his burner account.
Yeah, right.
And then forgets to log out of his burner account.
Yeah, whoops. You know what else that documentary really just showed me?
Huh.
That what today is a pathetic franchise was once bigger than the Beatles. Michael Jordan was sports. He was.
It was huge. It was so huge. It was so important. And I mean, you look at superstars, some of the greatest NBA players, and they were just marveling at the guy. And it's funny because you can watch LeBron James, and nobody's denying that he's not a great basketball player. But just to watch Michael Jordan, he was just so smooth and so in control of everything. And it was in an age when, not every time somebody waved their hand near you was a foul. They fouled you. And they didn't call them. They hacked you, and you had to play physical. And you had a guy like Michael Jordan who just made everything look so easy and so smooth.
And he was unfazed by it.
Nothing fazed by him.
I mean, look at those games. You'll probably actually remember this. I've just, seen the replay. Look at those games between the Bulls and the Knicks in the playoffs and how chippy and how physical those games got. You would never see that today.
No, you don't see anything like that. They don't let you get away with that kind of stuff. And
that's basketball, man. I know I sound like old man, but that's basketball.
Yeah. I mean, there was a period of time when Jordan would try to go to the lane and would just get demolished. And that's not fun. But you want to see some physicality in there. You want to see somebody make a good block shot and them not call a foul. Like you can't even block a shot now without somebody calling a foul. It's a little frustrating. There's a huge expanse of gray area between the Piston bad boys type basketball and where they're at now.
Oh, absolutely. And, I think that's one of the many reasons why today, just the NBA, it's so NBA 2K, where it's jacking up threes. Honestly, I feel like the old ways were better when it was, big men driving to the hoop, going through the lane, dunking, blocking shots. That, to me, that's more fun than just watching 1,000 3-point attempts.
I mean, there's a lot of things I like about basketball now. I really do. The game has evolved. There's some really cool parts. It's really fun to watch. A couple years ago, Golden State Warriors, that just well-tuned offense. As much as I do like, Akeem Olajuwon's probably one of my favorite players, and that style of play where there was you had awesome big men like Patrick Ewing and David Robinson and Shaquille O'Neal and Akeem Olajuwon and Alonzo Mourning, and it was the battle of big men. It was really neat, and now it's the battle of stretch stretch wings that can hit 3-pointers. And it's just the game has evolved. And I think part of the frustration on our end, at least, is our team is not very good.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, it's better when your team is good.
Yeah, you can accept a lot of the change of the game when your team is the one leading the charge. I'm sure there's a lot of hockey fans that bitched and moaned when the Blackhawks were in the middle of their Stanley Cup window.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They brought all this speed and finesse to the game. There was probably, and they had, they didn't really have an enforcer, and I'm sure
they beat you with your talent.
I'm sure there were people that, pissed and moaned that were like old school hockey fans, but we didn't care because our team was the winning one.
Well, it really doesn't help that everything you need to do to be successful in the NBA in 2020 is where the Bulls are terrible at. The Bulls can't shoot threes. They don't have superstar players. They're not well coached. They're not well disciplined. They lack any sort of fundamentals. I mean, it's everything you need to do to be successful. The Bulls are not good at, and that's why they are where they are.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think the point here is we're here to talk about the Bears. And I think, we have lots and lots of thoughts because there's actually quite we recorded the last episode at the wrong time because it was like as soon as we got it up, it was already outdated. The Bears have been quite active in free agency, and this is not to minimize the Bulls, but they're not in a season, and we're talking, old stuff. But the Bears, they're in the throes of things, and I don't really understand what the hell they're doing.
Well, there's a move I really like, and I think most fans do. There's a move I'm very meh on, which is probably the most talked about move. There is a move that I, like everyone else, absolutely hates. So it's a really mixed bag of things. There's many, many thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, so, I guess the first move is and the corresponding move to go along with it. The Bears signed. Well, I guess the first move was they signed Jimmy Graham.
Awful.
That was terrible.
Awful. 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 Awful.
Yeah, I hate that move. I absolutely hate it. The Green Bay Packer fans are laughing their asses off.
They couldn't wait to get rid of him.
Yeah, absolutely. And, here's the thing, is I think as Bears fans, we were all talking about Eric Ebron. Is it because Eric Ebron is the best tight end in football? No. But in the financial framework of where the Bears can afford a tight end, he seemed to be the best that you could get.
And frankly, even if he's not the best, I think he'll give you a hell lot more than Jimmy Graham next year for less money.
And, I think everybody was like, oh, Austin Hooper is probably the guy we wanted, but, that was a big contract he got.
That was a pipe dream.
Yeah, so it was 4 years, $40-something million. So,
as good as Austin Hooper is, I don't know if I want to pay that much money to a tight end personally.
It's one thing if you can guarantee he's going to change the dynamic of your offense. So, and that's hard to predict when you sign a free agent tight end. It's another thing if you extend him. So if you had him on your team and you extended him. So like George Kittle or what's his name from the Chiefs, where you're like, I can see he's on my team. I see what he's doing.
Travis Kelce.
So Travis Kelce and George Kittle, those are guys you're like, they're on my team. I know how important they are to my offense. I'm going to pay those guys.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
That makes sense, and I'm okay with that.
Sure.
With Austin Hooper, can you guarantee that he's going to be the thing that drives the Bears offense? I want to believe that improving the tight end and getting some better quarterback play is going to be a big part of the Bears offense finding its groove next year, but I can't guarantee that. There was a lot of things wrong. So is throwing $11 million a year at a tight end going to solve it?
It's risky, very risky.
Yeah, it's very risky. With the Chiefs and the 49ers, you're like, well, this is already the formula that's working. I'm just continuing it. Then it's a way different scenario paying that guy.
Right.
So, Hooper, I understand them not getting him because that's a big money to spend, and you're gonna have to make some cuts to make that fit under your salary cap. But then when it comes down to it, you gave a lot of money to Jimmy Graham, and you gave more money to Jimmy Graham than you did, or than Eric Ebron got. So you could have got a better tight end for less money.
Yeah, and you also saw what Emmanuel Sanders got.
Yeah.
I mean, Jimmy Graham is making more than Emmanuel Sanders and Eric Ebron.
And that's frustrating. And then when you stop and look at it, that you have two tight ends that are right around the sixth highest paid tight ends in the league, both on your team. And neither one of them is very good. One is 102 years old, and the other one, doesn't suit up for big games and was injured all last season.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all know that once Jimmy Graham retires, when we look back on his career, we're going to say he was one of the best tight ends for a number of years. From 2011 to even just 2017, he was one of the best tight ends in football. His absolute prime years were 2011 through 2014. I mean, he had several 1,000+ yard seasons. He caught 16 touchdowns in 2013. For many years, Jimmy Graham was the best tight end in football, at least the most productive offensive tight end in football. If this was 2014, we would be jumping for joy right now. But the fact of the matter is, he's 33 years old. He is slowed down immensely, and he's washed up. And if he's not going to do much in Green Bay, I sure as hell don't think he's going to do a lot here. I mean, you look at last year, he had 447 yards. That is the lowest since his rookie year. He only caught 3 touchdowns last year and only 2 in 2018. He caught 5 total touchdowns in his Green Bay tenure. He's not the same guy anymore. He's old and he's slow and he can't catch anymore.
And if they would have brought him in for, I don't know, $2 million, I would have been like, okay, I'm okay with that. But it's the amount of money they gave to him.
Yeah, absolutely. If it was dirt cheap, I'd say, you know what harm could it do? If he continues to decline and not be good, but you're only paying him a little bit, fine. You know what? Veteran tight end, he might be a good mentor for some of the guys they're trying to either bring in or trying to make work again. But you're paying this guy to be like a number one. And at this point of his career, I just don't think nobody thinks he's worth that much. A few years ago, sure, but not now. And I'm really not trying to disrespect the guy as a player because he has had a hell of a career. But I mean, look, Albert Pujols was once the best at his position in baseball. Would you give him $40 million today at his age? No, of course not.
Yeah, you said nobody believes he's worth that. One person did, and it happened to be the wrong person, the Bears GM.
Yeah, I mean, nobody, I guarantee it's not like there was a big competition for him. I think Lawrence Holmes said this the other day on 690 The Score. there's no way anyone was bidding for Jimmy Graham at this point. It's not 2014, it's 2020. There's no bidding war over 33-year-old Jimmy Graham.
Like, I appreciate that Ryan Pace is aggressive, but somebody needs to put a reality check on him. There's times where I try to defend him. I can't defend him on this move.
No, I can't either.
If you identified Jimmy Graham you thought would make your team better, okay. That's a different scenario than you gave him a 2-year, $16 million contract.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. I really don't get it. Was he afraid someone else was going to snatch him at this point? Green Bay let him go.
Yeah.
Like I said, they were excited to get rid of him. They were waiting to get rid of him. I mean, what is Ryan Pace also going to pay for his walker on the field? For his prune juice?
Yeah, so you have two disappointing tight ends. So you have like $16 million in tight ends that were disappointing last year. And Jimmy Graham, who played all 16 games, just didn't look good in those games. And Trey Burton, who didn't play. So is your tight end position any better? Honestly,
not really.
I thought they would cut Burton and start from scratch. Instead, they just doubled down with another bad contract.
I said going to this offseason, my opinion was they should have completely started that whole tight end core from scratch. You know, you had that guy, what was it? Horsted was his name last year.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to keep him as whatever his name was, if you wanted to keep him as like a third or fourth string, okay. But I mean, you cut Trey Burton. He can't stay healthy anymore. Adam Shaheen can't really do much. I mean, he's hurt a lot too. I think you got to move on from him as well. No offense to these guys personally, but if they're not giving you what you should be getting from them in terms of, production, you got to look at a new set of options here, because that was one of the biggest weaknesses, one of the many reasons this offense wasn't good last year. There were many reasons, obviously, but this was one of the big ones. And, Ryan Pace has identified some good players in certain areas, but in addition to quarterbacks, tight end has been one that has not looked good at all. I thought Trey Burton was going to be a sneaky good move. I actually really liked the Trey Burton signing when it happened. That to me was just a move that just flat didn't work out. I don't think that was really ill-advised by too many people. It just simply didn't work. Oh, well. The Adam Shaheen draft was kind of a head-scratcher, especially coming from a D2 school. But this seemed like a no-brainer, no, don't do it type of move.
Yeah, this is bad. And, where is Matt Nagy in this? Is he consulting him? Is he like, hey, you need another tight end. Here's Jimmy Graham. Is Matt Nagy going, yeah, that's the guy right there. That's who we're moving our offense through.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Jimmy Graham. I like him because he was on the Saints when I was with the Saints.
Did you guys know that I was with the Saints? I've made a lot of my bones with the Saints, and I'm trying to recreate what I had with the Saints. Like, you had Drew Brees, and you had in his prime Jimmy Graham. You had a lot of it. Like, you can't just recreate those. Like, you can't just let me recreate having Drew Brees. You either have Drew Brees or you don't have Drew Brees.
Yeah, and there's a big difference between 25-year-old Jimmy Graham when he had his best year in 2011, when he had 1,300 yards and was an AV of 13. Compared to 33-year-old Jimmy Graham with a lot of wear and tear and slowing down. Huge difference. Oh, and also, again, not having Drew Brees or Sean Payton for that matter.
Sean Payton, who's down with the COVID-19.
Yeah.
So that was a really frustrating move. It's really aggravating. And then you're like, okay, well, let's see what else we have here. Then next move goes, all right, where they cut Leonard Floyd and they signed Robert Quinn.
Look, Leonard Floyd, like we've said on this show before, not a bad player, but he wasn't doing what he was mainly supposed to do, and that's get to the quarterback. And he wasn't going to be worth the money that he was going to be commanding. So instead, you cut him, and you went out and got a guy who had 11 and a half sacks last year, and just a few years ago when he was fully healthy, had 10 and a half one year, 19 another year, and then 10 and a half the year after that. Robert Quinn is a dang good player, and I'm pretty excited about this move.
I agree. I fully agree with that. I like the move a lot. I spoke pretty candidly about Leonard Floyd, that you needed to improve from him, and he was making way too much money. And I wouldn't have mind if they brought back Leonard Floyd in a cheaper contract, but he actually went to the Giants for cheaper than the Bears were going to get him for this year for the 5th-year option on his rookie deal. But still, like was it $10 million they're paying for him?
Something like that.
So that's a whole hell of a lot of money that you just paid for a guy, and you're getting Robert Quinn for basically the same amount of money that you were going to pay Leonard Floyd per year.
Yeah, I think one thing that we all thought was going to happen this year was that they were going to move on from Leonard Floyd. So I don't think anyone's really surprised by this.
Am I surprised? I mean, it was the right thing to do, but I was a little surprised because I thought Ryan Pace would just stick with him. So it was more of I figured Ryan Pace would stick to give him one more shot and, try to redeem himself. And, that's kind of a GM mistake, is giving your draft picks too much time to prove that you were right and not just move on. And, I'm glad that they parted ways with him without letting him play that 5th-year option.
I was really hoping he'd eventually worked out, because every now and then you did see those flashes. And again, he never was bad, but when you need more pass rush, you need to get to the quarterback, and the guy you drafted in the 1st round is not getting to the quarterback. Well, find somebody who does. And Robert Quinn gets to the quarterback.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that defensive line there, with a healthy Akeem Hicks, a healthy Khalil Mack, and a healthy Robert Quinn. And, I think hopefully that sets the tone for this Bears defense next year.
Yeah, if everyone's healthy. I mean, let's be real here. If you have a healthy defense, all you need is an offense that doesn't completely suck, and you can make a run for the playoffs. You do need a good offense to win a Super Bowl, and I don't know how good of an offense we're going to get next year, but if this defense is fully healthy, and just to lead into another point, since we're not bringing back HaHa Clinton Dix, I think it would be a very wise idea to just let Eddie Jackson go back to free safety, because I think him moving a little bit was what hurt his numbers last year. You go back to free safety, Eddie Jackson, I think, is picking off more passes again. And if your pass rush is healthy and you have Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack's not getting triple teamed, and if you have Akeem Hicks and Danny Trevathan healthy, I mean, you can do kind of what you did in 2018. Now, 2018 had some pretty unsustainable numbers, but you can be pretty close to where that was. Again, everyone has to stay healthy. Everyone has to play to the top of their ability. You want depth guys like Roy Robertson Harris to have another good year, and other people like that. But, if the defense does what it is supposed to do on paper, then that right there gives the Bears a chance to make a run at a playoff spot.
an expanded roster of playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to see a real playoff run. That's what I want to see.
Me too. We should have had one 2018, but that's over.
So we've got Jimmy Graham, and like I said, I don't think this is a terrible move per se because it's a weak tight end class. I just think the contract is terrible.
Yeah, contracts really bad.
Then there's the next move.
I think the one that everyone's talking about the most
is the Bears in a matter of a couple of hours. The Bears went from negotiating a contract with Teddy Bridgewater to trading for Nick Foles.
Before we go into Nick Foles, did you think that the Teddy Bridgewater thing was really serious?
I didn't know. I was busy at work.
I hear conflicting reports.
Here's my thing. I wasn't, ground zero when all this happened. I was busy at work, so I didn't even, I saw a Big Dave tweet about basically, the complete rebound of, from one side to the other. So I was like, what are you talking about? And then he showed me some tweets and I went, that's kind of crazy. Do I think Teddy Bridgewater was serious about coming to Chicago? Probably not. He was probably just using them as leverage that, oh, hey, we're there's a contract here. Because Teddy Bridgewater had options to go somewhere and actually be handed the starting spot as long as he's healthy. And if you're a quarterback, wouldn't you want that? If you're going to get similar money, wouldn't you rather just be the starter?
Right, and I think that the problem with Chicago is there was going to be the competition with Mitch Trubisky in the way, and I don't think Teddy Bridgewater would want to be in the middle of that. He wanted to go somewhere to start.
And to be honest with you, no Bears fan's going to want to hear this. Nick Foles is going to have to absolutely way outplay Mitch Trubisky to win the starting spot because it's Mitchell Trubisky's spot to lose.
Yeah, I agree that it is his spot to lose. Just speaking on the trade itself for Nick Foles, I know there's a lot of people unhappy and a lot of people that aren't as unhappy. I'm really just meh about the whole thing. The whole talk about what he can do now versus what he did do in the past. Nick Foles has had a really interesting career. He's led a team to a Super Bowl. He's also been benched behind lesser known quarterbacks. And he's also had Pro Bowl seasons years before. I mean, in 2013, when he was in Philly, he had a really good year in just how many games did he play? 10 starts, 13 games total. You look at the yards per catch. He led in that. He led in quarterback rating. He was an 11 AV. And obviously we saw what he did in the Super Bowl a few years ago. He beat the Bears in a playoff game, even though we didn't, he wasn't on fire in that game, obviously, but he did eventually win that game. He did cap off a winning drive there. But he's also had a lot of just blah moments in the NFL. We saw Jacksonville did not go well for him at all. He was 0-4 and he got benched, and that didn't look very well for him. People do not think that he's worth a 4th-round pick, and I'm not as mad about trading that 4th-round pick away. I'm not giddy about the whole thing, but I'm not really livid about it because the way I look at it is this. We talked about Teddy Bridgewater already. The other rumors circulating for a long time were Cam Newton and Derek Carr. don't think those were happening.
Derek
they
Carr,
right?
Derek Carr didn't end up being available.
Right.
And Andy Dalton, if you want to talk about bad, he was 2-11 yet last year, 13 starts, and under a 60% completion percentage. And in fact, 2 of the last 3 years, he had an under 60% completion percentage. Touchdown to interceptions weren't that good. 16-14, 21-11. He's won one playoff game or any playoff games?
I don't think he's ever won a playoff game.
He's not.
Andy Dalton's won what, 4? Or Nick Foles has won 4, I think.
So Andy Dalton is just not that good of a quarterback.
Not now, at least. I mean, he had a few good years a while back, but that was a while back.
Nick Foles, you get him. Yeah, he's on your team now, and there's been some very good moments. There's been bad moments. I mean, his time in with the Rams after he left the Eagles were bad.
Yeah.
And he went to Kansas City for a little bit, and he was
didn't play much.
No, he had one start.
Yep, yeah, one start, 3 games.
And he had almost 66% completion percentage. I think he's a system quarterback. And the system he's going back to is from the Andy Reid tree.
Where Matt Nagy's, bald head was picked from the tree like an apple.
So
sorry for that visual.
So am I excited about this? No. Was I annoyed that they gave a 4th round pick when I thought, and a lot of other people thought that maybe Jacksonville would have to give up a pick to sweeten the pot and get rid of him? I don't think that was realistic. I think they would have kept him rather than give up a pick.
I agree.
But what they did do is they paid all of his signing bonus.
Which does matter.
It does matter. So basically, now you have Nick Foles for his, basically just his contract. And that means you could, if you want to, you can cut him and not have any ramifications. No, there's no dead money in there. You just cut him and boom.
Yeah, which again, that stuff does matter a lot. Look, I mean, when I mentioned Derek Carr and Cam Newton earlier, with those guys, not really options, because if they were to bring in Cam Newton, then they'd completely be done with Mitch Trubisky. And also, they weren't going to bring in Jameis Winston, because while Jameis Winston can throw 30 touchdowns, he'll also get picked off 30 times, and I don't think that's a recipe for success in Chicago in the system per se. Would I have preferred, if we were going to go in a completely new quarterback direction, leaving Mitch Trubisky, letting him go, would I have preferred Cam Newton? Probably. Would I have preferred even Teddy Bridgewater? Maybe. I mean, again, Foles has some very big accomplishments on his resume. But for what was available, for what they were probably going to be doing, there's not much else you can do. Your only other option that was really out there was Andy Dalton. And let's face it, I'd rather have Nick Foles than Andy Dalton.
Here's the thing with Cam Newton is if you could get a healthy Cam Newton, obviously he's the best option out there.
Of course.
But nobody knows what Cam Newton you're going to get. And honestly, the compounding factor in that is the NFL has, due to the coronavirus, they can't bring him in to meet with their their medical professionals, their doctors,
Right,
to
right.
examine him, and they can't send their doctors to Cam Newton. So the only thing they can do is rely on either Cam Newton's doctors or hire an independent doctor that's local there. That's not their team doctors.
doctor.
It's Dr. Nick. So you don't know what the hell you're getting with him. And you're probably going to have to trade more than a 4th rounder to get him. And he wants a new contract.
Yeah, I don't think Cam Newton was ever going to happen. I don't think it was ever even a possibility.
No, I don't think that was realistic. Jameis Winston, if you notice, there's no market for Jameis Winston.
No.
Jameis Winston is a guy. So you have like another quarterback friendly coach that coached him last year, and he wanted to get rid of him and bring in a 400-year-old quarterback. What does that tell you about Jameis Winston?
Yeah, that should say a lot right there. I mean, yeah, 5,000 plus yards. That's the most in the NFL. He also had the most attempts. So naturally, you're going to get a lot of yards, you're going to get some touchdowns, and you're going to get picked off a lot. Do you see a living on a prayer type quarterback working in Chicago? No.
No. And then the Teddy Bridgewater, he wants to start. And, the thing with the situation that the Bears have, it's going to be in the Bears' best interest for Mitchell Trubisky to be the guy that they thought they drafted. That's honestly because Nick Foles is basically either a stopgap or he is a very, very good backup.
You know what else I think that a lot of people are talking about, and I definitely agree with? I think part of this is the perfect kick in the pants where he's a guy that can take over, but also a guy that you feel like Mitch Trubisky would be confident enough in himself to beat out for the starting job.
But the thing is, do I think Mitch Trubisky lacks talent? No. Do I think Mitch Trubisky isn't smart enough to learn the offense? Yes.
Right. If we're talking about just raw athletic talent, Mitch Trubisky is very athletic. He's got a very strong arm. He's really good with the legs. I mean, he's a very athletic guy. But, you need to have, base football IQ to succeed. And, we haven't seen that yet from him. You see some occasional flashes, but you don't see it consistently enough. And, again, it doesn't help that his offensive line is terrible. But even when he does get blocking, Mitch Trubisky doesn't give you what you need in a lot of instances. While sometimes you get it, you don't get it near enough, especially for a guy who was drafted 2 overall and you traded up to get, like a franchise quarterback would be. But, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm confident in Mitch Trubisky at this point, but if there is a possibility that he can improve and that a move like Nick Foles is a way to really get his butt in gear and maybe motivate him to work a little harder and maybe improve his game a little bit, and then, okay, let's see if it works. I'm not sure it will, but all we can do is hope right now. One thing's for sure. One thing is for absolute sure. And this is a guy I've actually defended quite a bit, but having Nick Foles as a backup, I think, is a hell lot better than Chase Daniel. And I actually kind of liked Chase Daniel as a backup. I thought he was what a backup should be doing, but I would much rather have Nick Foles as a backup.
Yeah, Nick Foles won a Super Bowl as a backup.
Right.
Nick Foles, if Nick Foles does anything, it is he doesn't turn the ball over.
No.
You look at his stats, he didn't really turn the ball over. That's, so the positives there. Where's my Nick Foles stats?
Yeah, I mean, his career touchdowns, 71 to 35 interceptions. Interception percentage, 2.1. So, I mean...
Yeah, so, look at 2013. 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I know that's skewed, but, he doesn't throw a ton of interceptions, and that's going to be key. But honestly, I think that, best case scenario is Mitch Trubisky just wakes up and figures it out, and he's your franchise quarterback, because that solves a lot of things.
That would be nice.
If he's not, it's Nick Foles just band-aids the issue, because you're going to have to redraft somebody, and that's where teams fall behind the 8 ball, is when they start redrafting positions they already drafted.
Right.
And so if Mitch Trubisky turns out to be the guy they thought that they were drafting, then you give him the big contract and you can let Nick Foles go, or you trade Nick Foles. Now that he's basically salary only, you can probably get something for him. I mean, you gave up a 4th rounder, but you could probably pick something up, especially when it's only at that point a 2-year deal, $30 million deal roughly for a starting quarterback level. I think you could get something for that, and then you give the big money to Trubisky. That's, I think, best case scenario. Worst case, I mean, probably the more likely scenario is Mitch Trubisky wins the starting spot, has a very short leash, and Nick Foles comes in, and you don't move ahead with Mitch Trubisky as your quarterback, and you have to redraft somebody, because at that point your Nick Foles is in his 30s. He's not your long-term solution, and you have to start again.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're afraid of, and where we might be heading down. Let's just pray it's not that way. But I mean, last year wasn't very promising for that. But we'll see how it goes this year, and that's all we can really do.
Right. So, is this a great move? Not necessarily. Was it a move that sort of had to be made? Yeah. You need somebody that can come in and start and be better than Trubisky.
Right.
I mean, just imagine how different last season would have been. Is that opening game after the defense looked so good, shutting down the Packers, and then you can't score any points. Imagine if you could have, pulled that one out.
Yep. Things would be a lot different.
Things probably are a lot different for your team going forward. And, I think it was Eric Lambert that posted the stat, and, I don't think it's a great stat, but it was just kind of puts it into perspective, is something like Nick Foles, when his defense keeps the opponent like under or 18 points or less, or 19 points or less, something along those lines, he's like 18-3.
Yeah, I saw that stat as well. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know what you're talking about.
And, basically any quarterback's going to be really good when you hold the opponent to like no points. But I'm curious of what Mitchell Trubisky's stats are in that situation. I don't think they're probably very good. So really, I think they're saying, hey, we know we have an elite defense. Can we make the offense good enough to get us deep into the playoffs?
Yeah.
And, Nick Foles has had a lot of success in a Andy Reid type system. And honestly, you have to look at the real life situation we're in. I'm sure the COVID-19 is going to impact off-season activities. And if you can have a quarterback that has a working knowledge of the offense and can step right in and doesn't have to, need a lot of reps to kind of get what you're doing, because he already understands the language and the framework of the system, that's an advantage.
It is. It is. If there's one asset that Nick Foles has that I really like, especially on a team like the Bears, they need to do a lot of work with their offensive line. There's no question about that. But, it's good to have Nick Foles because if you remember, he's very good at getting the ball away quickly. I think that's a good asset to have, especially on a team like this.
Yes, and a team with bad offensive line. I mean, Either way, to either of these quarterbacks to have success, the offensive line is going to have to be a hell of a lot better, and the running game is going to have to be a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot of that is going to also rely on the coaching as well. It all has to be a lot better on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, there's going to have to be a whole lot better on offense, from coaching to quarterback play to offensive line play to tight end play to, running have a running game. There's a lot of things that need to be corrected, and trading for Nick Foles isn't going to solve everything.
No, it could potentially be a Band-Aid or something that might spark a little bit of, I don't know what you call it, life maybe, I don't know, but it's certainly not the main solution to everything.
No.
Will it spark a fire in Trubisky? Will it give them a quarterback with experience that's, has a few nice assets to his game? Sure, but you need so much more.
Absolutely.
It needs to be good, not good if you like puke.
Truth. So what else? In the Bears, they restructured Cody Whitehair's contract to give them some cap flexibility. And I don't love that because it kind of robs Peter to pay Paul. You're basically kicking some of your salary cap issues down the road a little bit. I don't always like that, especially when they structured Robert Quinn's contract to be more backloaded.
Right.
That that's going to catch up to him and honestly, I have a feeling that they did that because they're not anticipating Mitchell Trubisky to make the big jump and having to pay him a bunch of money.
Yeah, that's could be.
Because if they're not, then they're like, all right, well, that's quarterback money we're saving. And then we go from there.
Right.
The Bears re-signed Deion Bush. I'm happy with that one.
Me too.
I think he right now is probably penciled into being the starting strong safety. I think he's a solid player. He's a guy that you brought in, that you drafted. So it's nice to reward, homegrown talent. I don't think he's a bad option. I would love to see an upgrade though, but if that's who they start based on the salary cap issues, I think they'll be okay. I was a little nervous last year when he had to play more, but I think he is a competent safety, and if nothing else, he's a really good backup, and I think he's an okay starter.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it.
And you're not paying him. I mean, I haven't seen the contract details, but I doubt it's a ton of money.
I don't think it's a ton of money, no.
And then the Bears today went and they signed free agent Artie Burns he was playing with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right.
And this is an interesting one. I haven't seen the numbers on this one, but if it's a low cost move, I could be behind this. Artie Burns is a weird story. He came out really young. I think he was like 19 when he was drafted.
Yeah, his rookie year in 2016, he was 21 years old. He was drafted out of Miami.
He came out, he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready to be drafted, but he was in this position where I think his dad was in prison and his mom had passed away, and he was in a position where he had to make money. And I don't think he was ready. Had he been in a financial situation where he could have waited, I think he would have seen a much better cornerback come out. But either way, he was drafted. He was a first-round draft pick, a late first-round draft pick. He's still young. He's 24 years old right now. About
to turn 25, but yes, very young.
And he's very fast, athletic, and if this is a low-cost move, which I'm expecting it to be, I think this is a low-risk, high-reward type contract.
Yeah, I don't really know much about him, to be honest with you. But from what I'm looking at stats-wise, kind of looking over what you just said, probably seems like the scenario. I mean, I can't imagine he's getting much money. I haven't looked at the numbers either. I just know they signed him. And I also know that the Pittsburgh Steelers, when he did play there, he did take the ball away early in his career. He had 4 interceptions the first 2 seasons. He hasn't had any since, but, he played 16 games one year. Or, I'm sorry, he started 16 games one year. He played 16 games his first 3 years. And then last year he played 10. So he's only missed 6 games his entire career. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be a huge difference maker just based on the stats. But if he's a nice little cog in that defense, then so be it. Good. Also, he has the same birthday as I do. That's May 1st.
There you go.
He was born exactly 1 year after me.
Yeah, so I mean, I think Chuck Pagano could be good for Artie Burns. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be an under the radar kind of signing. I know a lot of people were down when the Bears signed Buster Screen, and he ended
up being pretty good.
He ended up being pretty good last year, and I think Artie Burns could be like that. So, I'm okay with that move. So as it stands right now, the Bears seem pretty set as is on defense. You could go into the season with the starters you have. That doesn't mean that, they can't be better or you can't get some more depth. That's not at all. I'm just saying if you went in like this with Fuller, Burns, Screen as your corners, Bush and Jackson as your safeties, and you've got your linebackers set, and your defensive line. I think you're okay. I think you're going to be a very good defense, assuming everybody stays healthy. There's definitely room to get better. I think you could add another depth piece as edge rusher. I don't like Isaiah Irving as your third edge rusher. And there's plenty of room if you use one of those 2 second-round picks to bolster your cornerback or your safety. They're in a good spot. They're settled up. they could go into the season with these guys, but there's still room to improve if need be.
Yeah, and then we have a draft. So that's more good news. Hopefully. You never know.
Right, and hopefully, I mean, there'll be a draft. Is it going to be? Is it?
There'll
gonna
be a
an
draft.
event? Will there be an event? Will it be a big thing? It might not be. It just might be a TV thing that we're watching highlights and the guys don't show up in their goofy suits and,
What about an all virtual draft where everybody's connected via like cameras and it's one big stream, and then when the team makes their selection, they cut over to the selection they made, and everyone's going yay where they are
in their house where they
yeah.
do I'm fine with that. I mean, I can't see them having a live draft like they have the last however many years, because the draft is going to be right in that window of containment and quarantine. So I would just be really shocked if they were to hold a live draft, especially after all the sacrifices that some of the other sports have had.
I think you can put money and pretty much guarantee the fact that it's not going to be that way.
So where are the Bears at right now, and what do they still have left they can do? Honestly, you're probably going to hate hearing this, but I think what would be a great move, and I don't know how they afford to do this unless they make some steep cuts, is imagine you have Khalil Mack on one side of your defense, Robert Quinn on the other, and then you're rotating in Clay Matthews.
This containment's really gone to your head, hasn't it?
No, I'm all aboard this. He had 13 games last year and had 8 sacks. He still got, a lot of people were, he's got nothing left in the tank because the year before, but last year he had a pretty solid year. He was just overpaid.
But I don't want to have to like Clay Matthews.
Nobody wants to have to like Clay Matthews, but I think, can you imagine you're going from Leonard Floyd to a combination of Robert Quinn and Clay Matthews?
I mean, yeah. I don't want to like Clay Matthews.
I don't want to. And then if he's terrible, you could sell him on Gallagher Way with other German tchotchkes.
We got bratwurst and cuckoo clocks and Clay Matthews at Gallagher Way.
You could get Clay Matthews, or you can upgrade to cast iron Matthews.
Well, I don't think I really want to buy any of this. You're gonna buy more tchotchkes.
This team needs to sell these tchotchkes.
Though, you know what? It would be pretty funny if, you went to Lambeau to play the Packers and there's Clay Matthews coming out in a Bears uniform. That would be kind of funny.
You know what? The Packers fans would probably laugh until the first time he came out there and sacked Aaron Rodgers, and then they'd be like, why did we get rid of this guy?
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
I'm looking at over the cap right now, and it sucks because I think this is, not quite accurate because they haven't included everybody yet. But they don't have Jimmy Graham in there. They don't have Deion Bush. They don't have Artie Burns, and they only had the Bears at $8 million in cap space. So,
unless they make some more cuts, I mean,
I'm trying to look where you can make cuts. Leno's making a lot of money, but what other option do you have? A left tackle?
Cut Trey Burton.
You could cut Trey Burton. That's going to save you $7.5 million.
That's a lot of money.
You could cut Bobby Massey. That saves you a whole lot of money.
Yeah, that does. And then you just draft that position.
I know a lot of people are talking about cutting Cordero Patterson, but
Don't cut Cordero Patterson. No.
yeah, I don't want that. I think it's a terrible move.
No, you need to use him as a weapon next year. Look what the guy can do. Do not cut Cordero Patterson. I will if Ryan Pace cuts Cordero Patterson, I will go to his office and I don't know, I'll piss in his cereal or something. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that.
That was an interesting one.
You like Lucky Charms? Well, these ain't so lucky.
So if I go through and do a calculator, and I cut Adam Shaheen, I cut Bobby Massey, and I cut Trey Burton, well, that didn't work out. That made him have less cap room.
Are you sure you're hitting the minus and not the add?
Yeah, is Bobby Massey like? Bobby Massey must have like a ton of dead money or something. Yeah, wow. Trey Burton must too. Oof. How is that now?
Go Ryan Pace.
Yeah, Ryan Pace. I'm not happy with this. What if we do it as June 1st cuts? June 1st cuts for Massey and Trey Burton and Adam Shaheen. It gives you $10 million. So it does not give you that much space. I'm hoping that they restructure people because they need some cap room here.
Well, Ryan Pace has restructured in the past, so maybe
I think you need one of those like you take a pay cut or we cut you.
Yeah, probably.
Man, there's not a lot of flexibility there. Oof. Oof.
Oof indeed.
Oof. Oof indeed. So, I mean, honestly, where do the Bears go from here? I don't know. I mean, we might see some more, low risk 1 year prove it kind of deals like the Artie Burns one. I think they'll probably look to bring in a veteran offensive lineman. That's low value or low cost. Same thing with a wide receiver. But honestly, I think they're fairly done with. I think they're fairly done with free agency.
I would imagine so.
I mean, they'll probably that next wave. So NFL free agency, you've got the big period when you get the big contracts out of the way. Then things will slow down a bit as people prepare for the draft. And, it's weird. I mean, in some ways it's weird to have free agency before the draft because, you don't know who you're going to get in the draft. It kind of changes things. So you'll see a lull around the draft, and then you'll have the draft, and then you'll have that next wave of free agency where people are like, okay, we needed a wide receiver and we didn't get one in the draft. Who's left? And you sign some of those guys. I think the Bears might be active in that market, but honestly, I think now it's draft. I don't see them making too many other moves.
I don't either.
They have what are the draft picks do they have? They have two second rounders. And then what else do they have? Where's the Bears draft? So the first rounder are still going to the Raiders. So next year they should theoretically have a first round pick. They've got a second rounder, 2 second rounders, a third rounder. Oh wait, no. Wait, what is this? Is like the worst website ever. Where's the Bears? There we go. All right, so the Bears have the 11th pick and the 18th pick in the second round. They and then they don't draft again until the 5th round. So they have a 5th rounder, 2 6th rounders, and 2 7th rounders.
Oh, there you go.
So there's not a lot of draft capital there. So
there's not.
So basically, you've got to hit home runs on those 2 second round picks, and probably hit on at least on that 5th rounder, because those 2 6th and 2 7ths are probably next to nothing. So, oof. And you need another edge rusher. You could use another wide receiver. You could probably get better at corner and safety. You probably want to get better at tight end. Man, there's a lot of things you probably want, and you don't have enough draft capital to do that.
A lot of holes, little cheese to fill it.
Yeah, that's oof. They just made it worse. I didn't realize they didn't have a 3rd, and now they traded away their 4th.
Well, that makes me feel better.
Yeah. They could probably use another running back too, because I don't know if Tariq Cohen is a guy that you want to keep using as the running back. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing them use Tariq Cohen more as a receiver. Utilize Cordero Patterson more on offense, whether it be the running game or as a wide receiver.
I agree.
Man, oof. I need to sit down and kind of think about this more with what the Bears roster is and what else they could do. But man, they're kind of.
And now our listeners will be treated to Sean Hotman fainting on air.
Yeah, I'm getting a little nervous here. I'm like, wait a minute. I was a little bit optimistic. Oof. This no bueno.
Do you need some vomit bags?
I do. I'm about to turn into a Buffalo Bills fan.
You're just gonna be sitting at the microphone, just like with your fist over your mouth, and it's just gonna be fountaining out.
like a poorly operating fountain drink machine.
It's so gross.
It's like when the beer tap starts spewing out nothing but foam.
Ew. Oh God, that is so disgusting.
I would link out the video to everybody, but I think then you might see Alex faint and pass out.
Yeah. That's definitely true.
If Alex never sees that video again, I think it's still too soon.
Yeah, no, that's 100% accurate. That you hit the nail on the head right there. It will always be too soon, even if never again. Oh man.
So I mean, honestly, the Bears are going to have to make work with what they have. They're a flawed team, I think. I just suddenly got a little less optimistic. Defense, I think they'll be a very good team. But man, I was a little more hopeful about the draft, and you're not going to be able to get a lot of help in that draft.
Just think, if we could have gotten a better tight end or another offensive player for a lot less and for better value than Jimmy Graham.
Right. or use that money you spent on Jimmy Graham, drafted the best available tight end with one of those second round picks. Like you almost literally will be able to pick any tight end in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And then use that money to bolster your offensive line or sign a wide receiver. I think the Bears would have been better off, but lessons learned. Lessons learned.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing left to mention is Rocky Wirtz said that the front office is not going to change for the Blackhawks.
Remember when I said I was worried about him kind of pulling the whole Jerry Reinsdorf?
I wonder if it's because he think that they don't deserve to be fired, or is it because with everything going on, we might have a shortened off season, or an influx off season, and it's not the time to completely shift gears?
Well, maybe I think another way that you could look at it is, I think it's possible that what he said may not be completely accurate. It's just that the season is technically not over yet. It's delayed, so he's not going to make any declarations before the season is over. And if you are going to say anything, you're not going to say anything like negative or, the guys I currently employ right now in a season that may or may not be over, I'm going to fire them. It might just be kind of fluff for before the season officially is over.
I hope so. I mean, we've discussed this a lot. I really think that this team needs a change of direction.
I do too. I think everybody does.
So I hope that's where things go with that, and that it's just a timing issue and not a statement of confidence in Bowman. And
not
Colleton.
Not a delusional issue.
Yeah, we don't have to check Rocky for Alzheimer's or something.
Yeah, I think if that does end up being true, my feeling is that Rocky Wirtz just feels like he still has something good, where it's not necessarily just the undying loyalty that like a Jerry Reinsdorf has. He still thinks for whatever reason it still might work, or the fact that maybe he's just scared of major change, because when he came in after his father died, he had this whole plan. He put it together with a lot of these guys, and Dale Talon was the GM, but obviously Bowman was still there. He brought in McDonough for the whole thing. So I just wonder if he's like, well, I had so much success by doing that. Do I really want to undo it and try it again? Will I be successful a second time? I don't know. So, I mean, at the end of the day, when you got to make changes, you got to make changes. And the thing that always kind of alarmed me about everything was you see Colleton and Bowman and McDonough holding that position 3 years removed from the playoffs and 5 years removed from a Stanley Cup. You see so many coaches, GMs, and front office, any kind of operations in hockey get fired much sooner, much quicker, and for much less. That's why it was always kind of alarming. Look how many coaching changes there are pretty much every season in the NHL. Other teams probably let Colleton go by now. Maybe not all, maybe not a majority, but some would.
There's a lot of quick triggers on coaching staff these days in the NHL.
Yeah, it's just the nature of the game right now. It's like a constant state of evolving.
Well, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
No. What else is there to talk about?
Not much. I'm sure next week we'll have, the Bears. I'm sure there'll be some more NFL news. Next week I plan, we have some downtime here with the quarantine. I'll really take the time to look who the Bears have under contract, kind of walk through what the assumed depth chart is, and hopefully by then we have a clearer picture of what the Bears salary cap is, and can kind of guesstimate where they're going to go for the rest of the free agency period, and maybe even a mock draft or two.
Cool. We should probably try to get Big Dave back on the show again soon.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some downtime now that there's no sports.
Yeah.
Might keep him sane.
Yeah, him and C-Dub, see what they're up to.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We could reach out to them.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn app, Spotify. If you have Spotify, we're on there. I even double-checked the other day. Share the podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at ShyFanPat1, at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Thank you guys so much for listening, and until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her, you can have her, she's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears! Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.